The red light, we caught up to him, and we were able to finish the race. In fact, can we have a picture? This was me at James Lawrence's house after a 112-mile bike ride. So I finished with him, and then that's where he picked up and finished the run for the Ironman that day. You guys, I hope that you take notes. I hope you listen to his story. James Lawrence is one of the greatest people that lives on this planet. He's got something different. His DNA is different. So ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet, put your hands together for James Lawrence.
I haven't found my physical and mental limits. It just came in my head. 50-50-50. 50 cities, in just 50 days.
Meet the Iron Cowboy, and very hard for your body to making one sport or cowboy happen with Kyle Paxton and James Show.
It's swinging pretty much impossible.
Comical, yeah, terrifying.
It's like coaching pass out.
Said this is a chance, it's crazy.
The first 2 days were really chaotic. So everybody got these smaller suits. We have 48 hours for 2 Ironmans and 5 hours to see. Jimmy said he can't feel his legs. He'd sit down with his sleep was so crazy. 1, 2, small. You want to finish running on the bike, you crash. And all of a sudden he's like, I can't do this. I stopped chasing society's dream. And I went after my dreams.
This is what we as human beings can actually do.
Whatever trial you're having, it's hard. There's a finish line to all of this. You just gotta get through today. So just fight.
Hold me there with your bike waiting for everyone's always.
She wanted to be different than everybody else. She wanted to be successful in life, showing that impact on people. And she found network marketing. And I was just so impressed. She's actually one of my greatest inspirations. And she is the reason of the mindset, the belief system that I have today. And she worked this industry until in her 90s because she loved it so much. And with one company the entire career, and impacted my life in such a profound way that I'm so thrilled for each and every single one of you that you are sitting here today and your futures are so incredibly bright, because I have had a front row seat to what this industry can do. So congratulations. Now, my name is James Lawrence, and the public calls me the Iron Cowboy. And it's a stupid nickname because I'm allergic to horses and hay. But in Ironman racing, it's the least friendly spectator sport on the planet. And when I first started racing, I had those 5 little children. And they would often miss me on the race course because we kind of blended in and we were focused on what we were doing. So one of my daughters, she said, "Dad, you should wear a cowboy hat and we'll see you coming down the road." And so I started to wear this cowboy hat, and then the public started to call me the Iron Cowboy. And it's just been an unbelievable kind of trademark, and we've had a lot of fun with it. But I actually grew up here in the United States. I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. 3 of you, thank you. All right, there we go. Now, does anybody here know what Calgary might be world famous for? Stampede, my guy. All right, Calgary Stampede. For those of you that don't know, the Calgary Stampede is one of the largest rodeos in the entire world. It is 10 days long. The city shuts down, and it is a huge party. It is rides, it's foods, it's chuck wagon races, concerts, fireworks. And I got to go to the Calgary Stampede every single year growing up. Well, I'm in my early 20s, and I'm trying to figure out who I want to be. What do I want to become? What type of legacy do I want to leave? And I was listening to the radio, and they announced this contest. And they said, we want to find out who can ride the giant Ferris wheel for the entire 10 days of the Stampede. And my undeveloped brain said, this is a great idea. I should get on the ride. And so I got on the ride, and I started to go round and round. And I was 3 days into this, and I'm watching people quit and get off. And it took me years to recognize what was happening. They were losing the conversation they were having with themselves. They literally weren't comfortable sitting there in silence. And since then to now, it's gotten worse. We now live in a day and age where it's 8-second dopamine hits, right? And I also recognized that they were sitting in a space where they were worried about a future. They hadn't forgiven themselves for the past. And they just weren't comfortable sitting there. So I'm on this Ferris wheel now, and I'm 7 days into the 10-day contest. And my mom shows up. She's on the ground to support me. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. She made me a sign. And when I got closer to the ground, I could read the sign. And this sign said this. It said, James, you got fired for your job. And so I was like, okay, I need to sit on this Ferris wheel for 3 more days because I'm now unemployed and I'm already broke. Long story short, I won the Ferris wheel contest. I hitchhiked a ride from Calgary to Utah, where I then stole my wife from Buck. And we're celebrating 25 years of marriage this year. We've got 5 children. Yeah. And the best news of all I want to share with you guys is we just became grandparents. And we got a 3-month-old boy at home or in the area. And then my second oldest daughter is going to give us twin boys in December. So, man, we are so excited. Now, what you guys just witnessed was the promo to the documentary of those 50 days, 50 hours, 50 states. And it changed my life. And I didn't know speaking and this kind of thing was a real thing. And so we did that, and people were like, we have to hear the story. That's just crazy. And then I also got these other phone calls to do very difficult challenges around the world. They wanted to bring me back down, right? Isn't it interesting once we establish ourselves or something? Society wants to tear you down and bring you back to their level. And I kept saying no to those because I was enjoying this new career that I was doing, helping people win the conversations they were having with themselves. And I kept saying no. And then I got this phone call from Africa. And they said, we want you to come climb our mountain. And I was like, wow, I don't climb mountains. And then they're like, no. This is Mount Kilimanjaro. This is 20,000 feet in the air. You have to come climb. And again, I said, no, thank you. And then they said, we know you'd like to be the first person ever to do something that nobody else has ever done. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool to say you're one of 8 billion people. And then they said this, we want to invite you to come to Africa and ride your bike to the top. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would I do that? And then, of course, I found myself in Africa trying to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Instantly regretted this decision. There's only one way to get to the top, and it's straight up. And the higher you go, the less oxygen there is. And so now my legs are burning, my heart is pounding, lungs expanding. But we made it to base camp, 12,500 feet. And I was sitting there, and I could hear a group, and they were talking about the accomplishment and the summit and the view from the top. And so I went over and I started to talk to them. And you can only imagine the emotion I had after I started to complain about how bad my leg hurt. When I looked down and I realized that she only has one leg. There's a moment where you have an absolute paradigm shift in life. And you recognize that, man, we have no idea when something's going to be taken away from us. to appreciate every single moment, whether we have a lot or we have none. I made a promise to myself in that moment I was going to wake up the following day, and regardless of the terrain, the difficulty, the altitude, the boulders, I was going to put a smile on my face, and we were going to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. And we did just that. And we were the first group to summit on the bikes. Thank you. And as I was standing there, trying to take in the indescribable view from 20,000 feet, looking over all of Africa, I thought back to the same group of veterans. And in that group was another gentleman. He was completely blind. He couldn't see what I was seeing. His eyesight was taken in battle. Yet he was so happy to be there because he was alive, having experiences. I've now had an opportunity to travel around the world and share this story in over 50 countries. And the number one question I get is, how do I become more mentally tough? How do I develop that same amount of persistence and resilience? It's only through showing up and having experiences that you can do that. And I found this quote, and I love it. It says, there's only one time that's important, and the time is now. And it's the most important time because it's truly the only time we have any power. And if we're watching society today, everybody's so worried about the future. Anxiety. Not forgiving themselves for their past. Depression. The solution is right here, right now. Where our feet are planted. Because again, we have no idea if tomorrow's going to be guaranteed or when something's going to be taken away from us. So now, my mission in life is to feel uncomfortable. I look back at my entire career, and it's the moments that I said yes to that have changed my life, that have shaped me into who I am today. I got a phone call and they said, James, do you want to fly an F-16 jet? And I was like, no, I don't. That sounds terrible. And everybody here's probably been in an airplane, you know how long it goes from takeoff to 30,000 feet. I'm going to share with you guys a quick video. Take off to 20,000 feet, 7 G's of force in just 15 seconds.
We are now to 68.
Okay, you guys can't see my face, but my eyeballs are this big. I am breathing out and plugged into the jet. As we hit 7 G's of force, the suit is compressing, sending blood to my brain so I won't pass out. I'm trying to learn the breathing pattern they taught me in the 15-minute tutorial I got on how to participate in this event. And then if you can hear the pilot, it's like he's having a Sunday dinner conversation with someone. But I tell you what, I recognize in that moment, Homeboy's the expert. And he has put in thousands of hours to be that. In fact, he's communicating with another group of experts on the ground. And together, they were collaborative and they were the experts. And it allowed me to calm down and enjoy that experience. But I quickly realized that we live in a unique day and age. There's so much good, but there's a lot of bad, and it's called social media. And I've watched my 5 children try to navigate this space. And I'm watching people fearful of doing something new for the first time. Being the newest member to a community. We're scared to not be the expert on day number 1. That judgment, that ridicule for not being the best. There's people in this room right now, this is your first time in this community, and there's experts. Those experts started out where you are and felt exactly how you're feeling, and it's okay. Every journey has a humble beginning. I'm embarrassed to put this on the screen. This is a picture of me, my very first ever triathlon. I'm learning how to swim. I borrowed a bike. I'm gripping to the edge of the pool, gasping for air. I look like an idiot wearing this nose plug. And nobody looks at this person in this moment and says, hey, that's the guy. I hadn't broken any world records. I was the newest member of that community. But it changed my life, and I'm so glad I had the courage to start. I went home that
My mission business has allowed me the power.
That's not part of my presentation. I went home that night, and on TV was the Ironman World was. I heard the NBC announcer say, "This is the hardest single day in sports." That got my attention. I'm like, what's the hardest day in sports? And he went on to describe that it's a 2.4-mile swim. It's followed by a 112-mile bike ride. And this finishes with a full marathon run, 26.2 miles, a total of 140.6 miles single day. I said, I just want to do one of those. That like fired me up. I want to know what that feels like. And so I found my race, I did my preparation, and when I got on site and into the water, I had no idea what was going to happen next. Imagine 2,000 athletes in the water. You're the athletes. You're sitting there ready to go. And when that gun goes off, you go into the swim position, you are instantly on top of your closest competitor. You get kicked in the face, you get punched in the mouth, you get swung over top of. In fact, on that day, in that moment, I got pulled down into the water. I had to figure out how to calm myself down, rise back up to the surface, and with intentionality start to navigate that chaos. Isn't that kind of like life we're experiencing right now, like chaos all around us? It's now how you choose to navigate through that chaos, those moments. I got out of the water, I was so grateful. I found my bike, I started the bike. Going down the road, having so much fun, going as fast as I can. I had an experience at mile 80. As I was riding, I had a visitor come up and try to talk to me. The visitor was the bully inside my head. And he started to tell me how difficult the journey has been. How everybody else around me is better than I am. How much more difficult that journey is going to be. And in life, we listen to that bully inside of our head, we give it power. Life is about managing those moments, those bully conversations. In fact, early in my career, I was trying to silence the bully completely. I never wanted to hear from him again. Over time, my relationship has changed with the bully inside my head. He's my buddy now. If I haven't heard from the bully inside my head in a long enough period of time, it means I'm not showing up in my life. I'm not trying to have impact. I'm not trying to increase the value of everybody else around me. It's about learning how to manage that conversation, win those moments, and continue down the course. I won that moment, and I got to find my shoes, and I got to run that marathon, and I got to hear the words, "You are an Ironman." That changed my life. And I'm going to assume, this is going to sound too bad, I'm going to assume 99% of the people here are saying, why does anybody do this on purpose? If this is the result, what are we doing? Well, I am here confidently to tell you today it's not this moment. It's this one. And in this moment, everything goes away. The pain, the sacrifice, the energy, it all becomes worth it. I wanted to have that experience as often as I could. So I set out on a very unique journey to break 2 world records. Most half Ironmans anybody's ever done in a year, and then followed that up to tackle the full Ironman world record. The record at the time was 20 Ironmans, and I looked at my ability, my belief system, my thought process of my team, and I said, we can do 30 Ironmans through 11 countries. And we boldly made that announcement. The public came back and they said, you know, if you just did 21, it would be a new world record. And I was like, yeah, but here's the problem. We're so busy comparing ourselves to the current standard of excellence, we're actually limiting ourselves as to what is possible. I believe 30 was the new standard. I'm not trying to break records, I'm trying to set new standards. And just like any member of any new community, the world record community, I was new. I really didn't know what I was up against. And sometimes being naive about the process is a good thing. We set out on that journey, and I knew I was going to learn along the way. I was in Marble Falls, Texas, and the condition, to Texas. And the conditions were perfect. And so I jumped in the water, swam the 2.4 miles, and when I got out, my buddy Tyrell was there. And he was cheering, he was yelling, he was going crazy, and I couldn't figure it out. As I got closer to him, he said this, he said, James, the leaders of the race, they just left. Grab your bike, go catch them, you could win today. And I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to win today, I got to do an Ironman next week. And he said this, just imagine how much your kids will love you if you win. And I'm like, they're 6. They want a Snickers bar, that's it. But he said the words, just imagine. Now, when in our adult lives do we stop imagining? Think of your friends, your peers, your relatives, your family members. How many of them wake up every single day super fired up, ready to tackle the day? Versus how many of them show up every single day angry, annoyed, looking for excuses, checking the boxes? I guarantee it's that one over there, Sean. And I didn't want to be part of it. So I got all fired up that moment. I grabbed my bike, I passed it out, I took over the lead of this race. And I thought to myself, dude, I could pass this motorcycle too. I couldn't get him though, but we had a massive, huge lead. But at mile 100, I got the most intense cramp I've ever gotten in my life. It was my quad. I grabbed it, locked it, wouldn't let go. I couldn't turn the pedals over. Guess who showed up? Billy inside my head. And he said, I told you you're not good enough. You don't deserve to be here. You're not a winner. You're not a champion. You're a loser. Quit. Go home. And in life, we listen to that bully inside of our head. We abandon the course. I heard another voice on that day. It was quiet. And it said, James, bro, you've got one good leg. It's just 12 more miles to bike. It's only a marathon to run. Let's go. And I was like, he's a genius. I've got options. That other voice was my intuition. We've forgotten how to dream. And we've stopped listening to our intuition because we're so busy listening to the coaches and mentors and individuals on social media that believe they're the experts. I challenge you to get back to dreaming. Get back to listening to your intuition. Allow that to be your compass and your guidance. I won that conversation with the bully inside my head. I got back on my bike. I turned the pedals over one leg at a time. I got to Tyrell. He was so excited he realized I was winning the race. I grabbed my cowboy hat and I started to run. I yelled back and went, I mean, you miserable hell. I was putting one foot in front of the other. I fight. I made it to mile 17. At mile 17, every single muscle in my body contracts at the same time. I go stiff like a board, hit the ground. Tyrell sees me go down. He sprints over to me. He's on the phone. He's like, James, don't worry about a thing. I've got great news. I'm thinking to myself, great news. I'm dying. That is on its way. He says, no, it's your wife. She's on the phone. She wants to talk to me. I panic. I don't want to talk to Sunny. She's going to tell me to get up. I can't. I mustered up the courage to look Tyrell in the face and I said, hey, tell her no thank you. It didn't go very well. He comes back home and later, still on the phone. He says, James, I'm so sorry. It's not medical. It's not your wife. It's your daughter. She wants to talk to you. My daughter's name is Lucy. She was 9 years old, and she and I had a quick conversation. She said, Dad, you told me we were going to do 30 Ironmans this year. You said we were going to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. Is there any way? Can you get up? Can you walk? Just finish. And I said, sweetheart, no, I can't. And then she said, okay, Dad, can you crawl? Will you crawl and finish? And now through my intense tears, I said, sweetheart, no, I can't. And then she says, okay, Daddy, will you cartwheel? Yeah. She said, will you cartwheel 9 miles and finish the race today? She had so much belief and conviction in her body, she thought I could cartwheel those 9 miles. My question is where's the belief and conviction on the journey you're on today? Are you looking for reasons and options to quit? She couldn't see the option to quit. It wasn't on the table. She hadn't learned yet that was not an option. I told her I loved her. I said, Tyrell, help me out. We've got work to do. We started to move through the night. We went from first place to last place. Hours passed. And I got to the moment where I could see it, the finish on the ribbon.
Yeah.
And I remember the conversation I had with my daughter. And I carved one time. But from that moment on, I too was filled with that same belief, that same conviction. We went on to win 2 races, placed second 5 times, smashing the Guinness World Record, not for the record, but to set a new standard for other people to chase. Now I want to introduce you guys to a friend of mine, his name's Dayton. This kid's super cool. He was born with a condition that's called cerebral palsy. I saw his story on YouTube. He was being pulled by his young friend for a mini triathlon. I found his mother's number. I called her up. I said, man, tell me, why does Dayton look so happy when he's doing a triathlon? And she said, oh my gosh, when he feels the wind in his face, it makes him feel alive. I said, is there any way can we do an Ironman together? Because he wanted to be a part of this world record. And so we said, I got to meet Dave for the very first time. Lake Havasu, Arizona, raced 27 of 30 in that year. Now, trust me, I was terrified. I've never pulled anybody in a race before. And his dad walks up, and he throws down this $20 yellow boat from Walmart. And he says, this is what we're going to use to pull my boy. And in my head, I'm like, we're going to kill your kid today. And then his dad puts his arm around me and says, I don't want you to worry about a thing, but Dave might have a seizure. If he has a seizure, just keep swimming, and the gun goes off. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. So I grab the rope, I tie it around my waist, I'm swimming as hard as I can. I'm looking back, is Dave okay? What does he do? Does he have a seizure? Every time I look back, I can see him. His eyes were closed. My son, okay, he's just taking a nap. He's totally fine, but man, I was so worried about that seizure that it never happened. You guys know that 97% of everything we worry about never happens? When we sit in that space, and this is something we're all guilty of, is ruining your life and your progression. We get some information, or somebody says something to us, and then we immediately go into the future and we start creating the worst case scenario. And then we play that game, if he said this and they said this, and when they say this, I'm going to do this. And then we start to spiral and isolate ourselves from all the lights and sin, darkness, and isolation. It's the worst possible thing you can do. It's called catastrophizing. And if you take one thing with you today, it's this. When that's happening to you, I just want you to pause, man. I want you to pause, I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to take out a piece of paper. And I want you to start writing down everything you're worried about, everything you're concerned about, everything you're scared about. And then I want you to take another deep breath. And I want you to revisit that list and then start crossing out everything you can't control. I promise you, my friends, you're going to be left with one thing. And one thing only. That's where you put your focus. That's where you put your attention. That's how you're going to progress and move forward. We got out of the water, middle of the pack. He never had that seizure. I didn't even need to put a thought to it. I needed to be prepared, but I didn't even worry about it. We got out of the water, middle of the pack. His dad created a special cart for Dave. We put him in the cart. I started biking around 27 miles an hour. When I look back, what do you think I saw? Biggest smile you've ever seen in your life. And I say, yes, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. At mile 30, Dave's car breaks. Where it's connected to my bike, it's slipped, and his car starts to shake. I go from 27 miles an hour down to 4, and I'm giving it everything I've got. My wife grew concerned. She realized we were going to make the time cut off because we were taking too long. She got on her bike and came out to find us. When she found us, we were devastated. We knew we were going to run out of time. I just wanted to have this young man hear the words, you are an Iron Man. And it wasn't going to happen. And then in that moment, Sonny reaches out her hand in kindness and puts it on the back of David's car. As soon as she touched the car, it took away that shake. My speed doubled, my cadence picked up. I looked back at Sonny Joe, I said, sweetheart, how long can you leave your hand there? She says, if it's helping, man, as long as you need. I said, good, we need you for the next 6 hours. And she says, whatever it takes, I'm here for you guys. And for hours, we're pushing and pulled Dave up and down the hills like that. And then the moment happened where it went dark. And the race director came out, he stops us, and he says, it's no longer safe to continue. I'm so sorry. And then in that moment, a police officer came rushing up. He rolled down his window, he turned on all of his lights, and said, boys, follow me. I'm going to give you your chance to run the marathon. He said, follow the light. I want to share with you guys a very emotional day that I got to spend with David.
There are many limits in life, but the only limit to achieving greatness is telling yourself no. Surface I was one day, but in reality, he was only one. He was the mind, I was the body, and together we were a machine. a hard struggle in my life. Every pedestal was like climbing a mountain. I kept being half over and over again. We weren't going to make it. I kept telling myself, David can't ride a bike. And I get to ride a bike today. I get to ride a bike. I look back and I realized he wasn't going to cross the finish line unless I came to make so. He was simply pushing limits hard. I kept telling myself, David can't run, and I get to run too. Race is measured in hours and minutes or seconds. It's measured in your ability to kick a race of curve and achieve what is possible.
Dayton can't ride a bike. I get to ride my bike today. Dayton can't run. And I get to run tonight. I kept saying that over and over in my head with appreciation. That finish line happened over a decade ago, but it's changed my life ever since. Every single morning when I wake up, I put my hand over my heart and take a deep breath of fresh air and I express insane amounts of gratitude. And when my feet hit the ground, I say the words, I get to do it one more time today. And I realize that nothing great is ever accomplished on our own. Man, Dayton and I, we needed each other. We needed Sonny to come out and reach out her hand, that police officer to light our way. That was Dayton's mother who ran every step of the marathon with us, and it was my two oldest girls that ran us into the finish line. It took every single one of us to put that medal around David's neck, and I am so honored and privileged to have spent that day with him. It's changed my life. And that story has gone on to change so many people's lives around the world. The challenge to express gratitude, to appreciate the moments that we have. And I fully understand that we're all dealing with things at different times in our lives, the different challenges that we all experience. We all just want to wake up every single day and feel like we're enough and feel like we're contributing and believe in ourselves. You just can't see the next challenge until you're ready for it. It's why it's so important to keep showing up, to keep having experiences. Every failure I've ever had has turned into a learning experience. We learned so much from that journey, and we believed that more was possible. We made the announcement, 50 Ironmans, 50 days, 50 states. They said it's impossible, it can't be done. I sat down with some doctors, I said, what do you think? They said, we think you're going to die. And so I stopped talking to doctors. I said, we're surrounded ourselves with people. I said, we're surrounded ourselves with people that had the same belief system mindset that I had. I started to assemble my team. My team ended up being my 5 young children. My wife, Sunny, and 2 best friends that we now call the Wingman. We started on this journey. We started in Hawaii, did an Ironman, flew to Alaska, did an Ironman, flew to Washington, did an Ironman. All piled in the motorhome, we started to navigate in the lower 48. Ironman every single day, driving for the next day to night. Averaged 4 hours of sleep a night for 7 consecutive weeks. I had to consume 12,000 calories a day to fuel the effort. Every single day was met with chaos, confusion, new weather, new environment, new issues, new problems. But persistence and resilience only come from having been given a chance to work through different problems. If you are dealing with something right now in your life, be it professional, parenting, whatever it is, man, I dare say congratulations. Rock bottom is the best place I've ever been. I've been twice in my life in extremation. I look back at those moments and I'm so grateful because this journey didn't get any easier. Your lives, this business, is not going to get any easier. My goodness, you'll just get stronger. You become more resilient. And when you're doing something so spectacular that nobody can figure out how you're doing it, media shows up and they want to talk to you. I got really good at doing these interviews. It was day 21 in Florida. I had just crushed a brilliant interview with my wife. I need you to just have more intelligence on camera. I was like, okay, all right, that was a great job, maybe not. And I remembered this moment. And I promise you, moments like this in relationships and business and our teams will splinter a campaign, will splinter the chemistry between the teamwork. I went and I found the video footage of this moment. I want to share it.
Good morning, Christina. James Lawrence. He is the Iron Power Wings from Utah and is on Physical Beach to do one of his 50 Ironmans. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And this is your 21st one, right?
Yeah, 21st of 50.
And how has it been so far?
I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing a great job and all for a great cause, right?
I realized in that moment I was being so filled with anxiety and depression and confusion and fatigue. But the biggest thing I realized is I was trying to control every aspect of the campaign. I was trying to control every member of the team. And as soon as I let go of that pressure, guess what? Magic happened. Everybody else around me started to rise up and we started to gain momentum. We started to fly through it. I want to share with you guys a message that I learned, that it's your reaction to adversity, not diversity itself, that determines how your life sort of develops. I'm going to get some hate, a little bit of pushback, but you get to choose how you react to the things that people say to you. You get to choose how you react to the things that are happening to you. We can't always control what's happening to us, but we do get to choose how we react to it. And I promise you, if you can figure out how to do that intelligently, your life will be very different. It will be incredibly beneficial to learn this skill set. Now, I've got another clip from the documentary that's on Amazon Prime. It showcases one. Wingman number one, Casey, gets to choose how he reacts to something I say to him. Imagine in work, in life, if this individual reacted like this, how much better the world would be. And then two, you get a front row seat. A front row seat to the conversation I'm having with the bully inside my head. In this moment, I'm deciding whether I'm going to allow fear or my dreams to dictate my next move.
James is a really person, and so then you put him in a motorhome or in a van with really crappy sleep, only can run it to him 4 hours, coming up by every day, and then you have to be the person to wake him up. It was traumatizing.
Yeah, no. Constructive criticism. That's what he has. Constructive criticism. Show that there's an issue.
James has been incredibly depressed. I could tell that he was desperately reaching out for me to tell him, you can do this, you're going to be okay. There's a finish line to all of this. You just got to get through today. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't as difficult. He was suffering.
Somebody's not an alcoholic, that was juice. But you can't hear it because it's in my head, but it was super loud, it was super violent. Again, it was, you're not good enough, you don't deserve to be here, you can't do this. The stress you're putting on, the impact you're not having. All of the things we tell ourselves in the peak of emotion and adversity. In that moment right there, I was negotiating with myself the bare minimum I could manage to continue forward. Nobody can convince me in their darkest moment you can't rise up and be better for 1 second. Just 1 second. And then you have to have the skill, the ability to step 1 second at a time until you come out of that moment and then you gain momentum. I promise that every single one of you right now, look at your history, there was moments you did not believe you would make it through. And guess what? You're here today. And because of that moment, you're stronger than you've ever been. Those moments in our lives are absolute gifts. We can't let fear dictate how we proceed. Did you know that the physical reaction to fear and excitement is exactly the same? Is how we choose to frame it in our minds. I didn't want fear to dictate how I was going to show up in my journey. But I did wake up scared every single day. But to grow, to adapt, and to evolve, we need to become uncomfortable intentionally. Only then will you be the best version of yourselves. You hear people say that you have to choose hard. I'm here to tell you that, yes, you absolutely have to choose hard. Because if you don't, hard will choose you later in life. It's going to be hard either way. And I hope that you make the choice to make it hard intentionally now so that you can be armed for the moment when life's handing it to you. You are going to be ready to deal with it. When was the last time you intentionally became uncomfortable? When was the last time you broke down your fears to a manageable moment where you could overcome them so they were no longer controlling you? Again, I woke up scared every single day on the 50. Day number 1, I threw up violently from heat stroke. Diaphragm got stuck open, had massive acid reflux for days. No idea when this was going to stop. You can't plan for something like that. We fight for 18 days in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's 106 degrees outside. I lost concentration for 2 seconds. I fell asleep while riding my bike, and I crashed. I'm laying on the side of the road, possibly broken hip. He who has the right to live can bear almost anyhow. I didn't know how. Well, man, did I know why. We're the first generation ever where the parents are studying to outlive the kids. I have 5 kids, and I'm only proud of that statistic. We put together a 5K every single night for the public to come join and run with us. Same daughter, Lucy, now 12, she says, Dad, I know this is hard, I know you're struggling, but guess what? We can do this together. I'm going to be there every single night to run all 55 Ks with you. I didn't know how, but I promise you I knew why. I had a 7 o'clock appointment with my daughter every single night. And you won't see a picture anywhere where Lucy isn't right beside me. She ended up running all 55 Ks. You know, 56, and she doesn't even realize that she's the reason I kept showing up. If you try to help everybody else around you accomplish their goals, it's impossible for you not to accomplish yours. I was just trying to help her accomplish her goal, and I met mine. But there's going to be a moment on your journey where you don't know if you can take the next step. Where every step you take, where every step you take, it feels like a nail gun is being driven through your foot. But I promise you, that next step's the most important step. It's the step that few people have the courage to take. And this is going to sound completely absurd, but on the other side of that step is where an Ironman a day becomes routine and normal. That is a very small percentage of people that are willing to take that step. Number 66, she was like, I just want to do 5K with Team Iron Cowboy. And so she got on the start line, she got her number, and she started to run. She was quickly overwhelmed and she had to walk. I remember seeing her because she was the very last person to cross the finish line. I went up to her and I said, congratulations, how was that? She said, that was the hardest thing I have ever done. And what she said next, I'll never forget. She said, can I do that again tomorrow? And I said, yes, you can, but we're going to be in another stage. But you have to show up. And she showed up the next day, she got on the same start line, she was overwhelmed, had to walk, last person to finish. I went up to her again and said, how was it today? And she said, well, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll see you tomorrow. For 5 days she showed up, she did the hardest thing she could think of, trying to become a better individual. And on that last day when she crossed the finish line, her head was up and she was proud. She was still last, but she was impacting her own life. So I went up to her and I gave her a big hug. And I said, Mom, I'm so proud of you. I know how hard that was for you. My mom has struggled with obesity her entire life. She just wanted to run 5K with her son. My mom's hard was 5Ks. Lucy's hard was 50 5Ks. My hard was 50 Ironmans. Everybody's hard is different and it's okay. As long as you're showing up and meeting yourself where you're at today and have that drive to continue on. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, you're going to make mistakes, but adaptation is the secret to success. In fact, I believe that making mistakes is a point of life so that we learn through and grow, adapt, and evolve. We made a mistake the day after that bike crash. We're in Mississippi, trying to do another Ironman. It was hurricane conditions, we were pushed indoors. We made a mistake to jump on an elliptical machine to cover the last few miles of that day. And you know what? The following morning, we woke up to hatred. Keyboard warriors, online bullies telling us we cheated, quit, go home. The journey is absolutely over. We knew you couldn't do it and you just proved it to us. I almost went home. almost abandoned the dream in the process. But I had an unbelievable team around me that encouraged me to stick around. We were doing this for a greater cause, and man, we were just doing the best we can. When it was all over, I totaled up all the miles, 7,030 miles we completed, of which that moment in Mississippi represented 0.24%. 0.24%. In life, we can do so many amazing things, accomplishments, accolades, and one thing goes sideways, and man, we give it all of our power, all of our attention. I challenge you, don't let someone else's opinion of 0.24% of your journey impact how you proceed. If you're the one in the arena with mud on your face, showing up with honesty and integrity, they don't get to have an opinion. I challenge you to focus on all the good out there. Wake up every single morning and say, I am enough. I am worth it, and I get to be here today. I get to do it one more time. Now, the pandemic hit, changed the world, and I looked at it as an opportunity. I had learned from my mistakes. I wanted to do the 50 over again. But I was like, nah, I don't want to do that again. That was crazy. And so I thought to myself, what if I put systems and team in place? What if I eliminated the chaos and confusion and logistics? Could I double what everybody said was possible? Could we do 100 consecutive Ironmans, no days off, and you know what? Let's raise $250,000 to free humans that are being sex trafficked today. So my team agreed. My team agreed. We started on March 1st, 2021. It was 18 degrees outside right here in Utah. We were biking around Utah Lake and the Rocky Mountains. I've never been so cold in my life when we started. Faced every weather system, rain, hail, sleet, snow. But I refused to do one outside. I remembered my past. I remembered the mistakes that I made. I wasn't going to give away my power. By day number 5, I had an ankle injury that sewed up into my shins. 2 stress fractures. I keep fighting for 15 days. I'm out on the run course. I'm out on the run course waiting for the step my leg was going to break. I was willing to do that. There was a moment that I lost the battle with my mind. Depression and pain were so great, I lost the battle. And I blacked out. And Casey, who was doing all 100 marathons with me, he catches me. And when he caught me, we were ready for that moment. When I came back to consciousness, we said 3 words and we said them together. And those 3 words were, here we go. It was a total mind and body reset. We continued down the trail until I blacked out again and he would catch me. Repeated that process until I crossed the finish line that night. I went home that night. Had a conversation with Sonny Joe. I said, sweetheart, I can't manage that level of pain for 85 more days. And she said, sweetheart, in her infinite wisdom, she said, I just need you to do one thing. I just need you to show up and start because we have no idea when the next miracle is going to happen. I said, okay. The following day, I found myself back on my run trail waiting for the step my leg was going to break. A gentleman pops out of the trail, he introduces himself, he says, man, you don't know me. I'm the world-leading manufacturer of carbon-plated shin braces. If you put these on, it will uphold your shins, give you an opportunity to heal and continue. I said, you live on the trail? I've been dying. Yeah, where have you been? And the next thing he said blew my mind. He said, we're just praying you show up one more day, we've been getting ready for you. And we put those on, and it offloaded my shins, allowed us to break our own world record in 50 consecutive, resetting our history, silencing every critic, and doing it to perfection. And then every day I gotta wake up and break a new world record. And then this is actual footage from day 59. We're riding the bikes, we're on the home stretch, and the team that was riding around me that heard a loud bang. It was like an explosion. This is wingman number 2. He was my protector, and he's running back to me, and that's me laying in the middle of the road, knocked unconscious. I knew the journey was over. 59 was going to be good enough. Our team has what's called an ethos. An ethos is what you stand for, black and white. It's the line in the sand that you're unwilling to cross. And when you're laying in the middle of the road, knocked unconscious, you cannot make the right decision. No good decision in the history of decisions has ever been made in the peak of emotion. You have to be ready for these big moments. Aaron knows my ethos. He asked me a question, James, have we finished what we started? No. They said, in the best example, you know how for your friends, your family, your community, your legacy? I said, no. He said, we raised 250,000 of free humans that are being sex trafficked today. I said, no. I And while he said next, shoot cigars anybody in this room, he said, get back on your bike, brother, it's time to ride. I said, yes, sir. Picked my bike up, dusted myself off, straightened the bars out, and finished the day. Later found out that we had broken my back in that accident, cracked my L5 vertebrae, had to do 41 more Ironmans with a broken back. I do not say that for sympathy or attention. My point here is in life you need to choose where you put your focus and attention. I knew my suffering would end in 41 more days, but these individuals have no idea when their suffering's going to end. I could show up one more time. I could try to raise one more dollar. And then there's always that moment where you're like, it just can't get any worse than it is right now. It just can't. And that had to be the peak. It can't get worse. For me, that was day 80. I showed up on day 80. I was going to get in the water. I was going to pull out my phone. I was going to be motivational on Instagram. I was going to go live on that baby and deliver the most inspirational 15-second speech you've ever heard. And when I pushed the button, I was so overwhelmed with emotion that this is all I could say.
I'm gonna try today.
I'm gonna try today. And I know every single one of you is woken up and first thing in the morning, I just